trumpet to sound, the trumpet of the Jubilee. Then shall the cause the trumpet to sound, the trumpet of the Jubilee. The trumpet of the Jubilee. Then shall the cause the trumpet to sound, the trumpet of the Jubilee. Shall the cause the trumpet to sound, the trumpet of the Jubilee. The Jubilee, the Jubilee. Shall the cause the trumpet to sound. Hallelujah.
Boom, 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 boom. Ba-dum, bum, ba-da. Ba-dum, bum, ba-da. Bum, bum, ba-da. Bum, bum, ba-dee.
Listen, open to things and to be. Listen, open to things and to be.
Listen more often to things than to beings. Yes. Thank you, Director Leonard Stark and the musicians and Jubilee singers and composers for all the musical breaths which will sustain us today. And special thanks to ASL interpreter Mia, who makes everything flow. Love watching that. Thank you. And I'm Reverend Louise Green, the Minister of Congregational Care. Welcome to our Sunday service, which honors the broad 1 year set of anniversaries of the COVID pandemic. Hear these words from Dr. Bonnie Thurston, who is a retired theologian now in West Virginia. In rare moments, when I am home to myself, my heart is still. My pulse is a psalm. I know obscurely I receive my life from a power beyond me, live by a life not my own. This morsel of life, its ephemeral beauty, its searing sorrow is on loan, marginal to a greater agency that always engages the darkness, brings life from death. In the many poignant days of this last week, honoring massive changes within the pandemic, I felt a wild range of emotions. I mourned hard losses again. I remembered how rhythms suddenly fell away. And I noticed deep nurturing habits developed over months. And in this year, unlike any other, we must bear witness to the loss and the beauty within that steady drumbeat matrix of Earth, our planetary home. Continuing in seasons that are both terrible and lovely, we observe all the ways we maintained and held on. For we are here this morning. Millions are not. Let us remember the privilege of that embodied living witness and worship together in spirit and truth. I invite Mary Borland and Thad Ring to now light our collective chalice with yours, with beautiful words written by Mary. This is our Unitarian Universalist symbol of the worth and dignity of each creature and the interdependent web of its existence which connects us.
In the rich brown earth, a glimpse of green rises up, a hopeful stem, seeking and growing. And in that moment, our mind's eye can already imagine.
How amazing that we can still imagine.
Imagine the yellow trumpeting of the open daffodil and the many flowers to come, attracting visitors with wings and those whose hearts wing at the sight of such beauty. We light this chalice, symbol of Unitarian Universalism, because its yellow flame, it reminds us to imagine beauty yet unseen and to continue to rise up as hopeful, seeking, growing people, so we may blossom, one and all.
May it be so.
Morning has broken like the first morning.
Good morning. Welcome to All Souls Church. My name is Perry Roper, and my pronouns are he, him. Welcome to this community where our search for spirituality and our passion for justice meet and mingle, where our head and our hearts are divided no more, where reverence for the earth and belief in the dignity of every person informs our ethics, where music is an expression of our joy, prayer a sign of our faith, and acts of justice a symbol of our hope. Welcome to a place where when we say all souls, we mean it. A place where all are welcome at the table of love and fellowship. Welcome one and all. I want to extend an especially warm welcome to all who are joining us for the first time. If you'd like to be added to our e-newsletter mailing list, send a direct message to Gary Penn in the chat. And do stay on afterwards for coffee and conversation so that we may greet you. In an effort to acknowledge and support Indigenous communities, it is important to recognize the people who lived on the land where our church now stands. The closest village was Nacotchtank, from which the name Anacostia is derived. This settlement was part of the Piscataway group of tribes. We acknowledge that Indigenous peoples were here before us, are here with us now, and will continue to be with us as we look forward to the future. Let us take a moment of silence to reflect on whose land we each reside in our individual and collective locations around the U.S. and our planet Earth. If we were together in our building, we would turn and greet one another. While still online, we do something we call beholding. Take a moment to scroll through the gallery view, say hello in the chat to one another, and behold one another's faces as we are together creating community.
Good morning, all souls. I'm Reverend Rob Keithan, your Minister for Social Justice, and I have a few announcements this morning. There are two events happening today. The first is part of our new after-hour series of structured conversations following the Sunday service. So in addition to the regular coffee hour, today and most of the Sundays here on out, we'll also open a breakout group for some smaller conversation. Today is a sermon talkback with Reverend Louise. What are your stories of nature from year one of the pandemic? Come share your experiences, whether they involve looking out your window, rambling in a park, or driving somewhere new. To participate, just stay in the same Zoom and then join that breakout group. Second, this afternoon from 4 to 4:30, All Souls will hold a quarantine anniversary vigil with the theme, "We're still in this together." This gathering is a public witness for our grief at loved ones lost, our resilience and persistence in the face of these challenges, and our renewed commitment to justice, which includes equity for those disproportionately impacted by that pandemic, as well as the ongoing need for systemic change. Participants are invited to bring signs with messages related to any combination of those three themes: grief, resilience, and justice, or just show up and enjoy being together. But, not too close together. We will still practice physical distancing and masks are required. There will be a short program at 4:30, and we will live stream the event as well. Check the church Facebook page for details. And hopefully you've seen that we've launched our pledge campaign for the next fiscal year with the theme, All Souls, All In. We invite you to let us know how you'll support the church in the coming fiscal year, which starts July 1st. Simply click the All Souls, All In graphic on the homepage. And finally, it's time to start planting, because the 2021 All Souls Mother's Day plant sale is a socially distanced go. This year, the sale will be held on Saturday, May 8th, and we're looking for volunteers to grow and donate plants for the sale itself. Indoor and outdoor plants, hanging varieties, cuttings, vegetables, flowers, herbs, and non-invasive species are welcome. Please contact Rose via email if you can commit to donating plants. We turn now to our pastoral concerns. And first, we recognize that the trial of Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, who killed George Floyd, started this past week. So our first prayer is a national pastoral concern for racial justice and a concern for the racialized trauma that impacts so many, even over generations. And as we pass the 1-year anniversary of the pandemic, we know that so many are marking the loss of a parent, family members, friends, or coworkers in the last year. Whether or not COVID was the cause, each of these deaths has been complicated by the systems impacted by the shutdown. And so we grieve with so many who could not observe the usual rituals for dying and death. Today, in particular, we mourn with Jonathan Neely on the unexpected death of his father, Mark, in February after a lifetime of health struggles. We're sending blessings to Jonathan and family as they prepare for a Zoom memorial in early April. Today, we also grieve the February death from cancer of Sister Deanna Ortiz. Sister Deanna was a nationally known Roman Catholic leader based in DC who founded the Torture Abolition and Survivors Support Coalition. Was famous for her accompaniment of others after torture and assault. Sister Deanna was also the godmother of Javier, the child of member Meredith Larson, dedicated at All Souls. We send condolences to Meredith and Javier and to the very wide community grieving the loss of this remarkable and visionary woman. And 2 Zoom celebrations of life approach and are on the All Souls calendar with links. This Saturday, March 20th at 5 p.m. for Marshall McVaden, the mother of longtime member Aaron McVaden Albright, husband Jim Albright, and son Eduardo. And Saturday, March 27th at 6 p.m. for Silver Souls and All Souls leader Emily Dyer. We're thinking of Emily's sons, Emily and Philip, as they plan this event. In the silence that follows, please say aloud the names of those you carry on your heart this morning. I invite you to join me in meditation with these words from the Ute Indians of North America. Earth, teach me stillness as the grasses are stilled with light. Earth, teach me suffering as old stones suffer with memory. Earth, teach me caring as parents who secure their young. Earth, teach me courage as the tree which stands all alone. Earth, teach me limitation as the ant which crawls on the ground. Earth, teach me freedom as the eagle which soars in the sky. Earth, teach me resignation as the leaves which die in the fall. Earth, teach me regeneration as the seed which rises in the spring. Earth, teach me to forget myself as melted snow forgets its life. Earth, teach me to remember kindness as dry fields weep with rain.
Many of us who live in the Washington area are familiar with Skyline Drive up in the Blue Ridge Mountains. It's an area of exquisite beauty and just a stone's throw away from the nation's capital. Summer and fall are when most people make the trip, but I want to talk about the experience in the winter. The place has a totally different feel. Trees shed their leaves, and this changes the view considerably. It's very quiet. Unlike summer, when the traffic can rival the hordes on the Beltway at times. Many of the lodges, the camping areas, and amenities that are packed in the summer are closed during the winter. On a recent trip, part of the drive was closed due to a recent snowfall. While this was disappointing to my husband and me, we still felt wonder over the beauty surrounding us and were grateful that someone had the foresight to preserve this treasured landscape. We relished the thought of coming back later when it reopened. Meanwhile, the deer will keep foraging, the spring will eventually produce new growth, and nature keeps working its miracles. Now, our church has been through a different winter of sorts this past year. Our views are indeed different. We see each other through Zoom and not eye to eye in the sanctuary. It may be quieter this time of year on Skyline Drive, but for us, the quiet comes when we use the mute function. Our church building is closed. While this is disappointing, we have thoughts of coming back, and what a celebration that's going to be when we do. Meanwhile, the church continues to serve us. The board is working hard on governance and other policies. The music and sermons fill our spirits, and we can give thanks that others had the foresight to invest in this church in the past so that we could benefit from its presence today. I give to All Souls because I want this sanctuary to be in good physical and spiritual condition, not just for me, but for those to come. I know there are fruits that I will not harvest, but I also know that it is so very necessary to plant the seed so that there is the possibility of a harvest. The plate will pass soon, and I would encourage each person to donate. I also encourage each person to pledge. Our goal is $1.2 million, and all amounts are welcome. All members are encouraged to double their pledge or increase their pledge this year by at least 10%, and to give a little extra if you can. Many in our community are suffering from the economic effects of the pandemic. Pledges are the basis of the All Souls budget. A pledge is a promise to fulfill a gift to the church. Your support will allow the church to continue to provide quality worship services, stellar music, fun and engaging religious education programming for children and youth, compelling adult spiritual education classes, and it also supports our social justice initiatives. This winter of a year has been a challenge. Let us respond by doing what we can to preserve our treasured landscape. The morning's offering will now be given and received.
I love those videos. And thank you, Gary, for syncing the humpbacks and the wolves and the loons with the sounds of the music and the animal voices. This morning, our reading is an excerpt from an essay called The Arrhythmic Beat of the Pandemic. It was written in April 2020 by Dr. Brian Glennie, who is a professor at Norwich University in Vermont. And I want to say thanks to Kirsten Lodahl, All Souls congregant and seminarian, who sent this text. She began some great thinking about the 1-year anniversary over a month ago and really influenced a lot about what I am going to say. Here's our excerpt. During this pandemic's lockdown, my where and when have changed to, whoop, I messed that up. I'm going to start over. During this pandemic's lockdown, my where and when have changed meaning. My how and why are shifted out of position too. And now I'm asking myself, who even am I? I've spent weeks reading a 100-page book I normally would read in a day. It's called Rhythm Analysis by the French philosopher Henri Lefebvre. It's an attempt to establish a new science of knowing. This book ironically accounts for my failure to finish it. His diagnosis, arrhythmia. Arrhythmia is a hypothesis for explaining disruptions in the meaning of personal time and the fragmentation of people who are out of phase. Lefebvre writes, everyday life remains shot through and traversed by great cosmic and vital rhythms, day and night, the months and the seasons, and still more precisely, biological rhythms. My take, says Brian Denny, I've got a certain beat in life that I live by. It changes season to season, day to day, hour to hour, but I've become habituated to these different beats at different times in a way where I don't even pay attention to them until they are disrupted. They are part of my hourly, daily, yearly songs. But this disaster, this pandemic, has deregulated all my habits. I've never had a pandemic season to habituate to. I'm spending all my energy re-habituating myself. My energy is consumed learning a new pandemic song. How is your pandemic song going? Are you still re-habituating because the disruptions of rhythms never ceases? Do you keep establishing new patterns only to see them unravel again? Brian Glennie's essay, written almost a year ago, resonates deeply now. This entire week has seen a recounting of disruption stories on every media platform, in so many losses and recalculations. And I'm interested in Denny's questions. During this pandemic's lockdown, he said, my where and when have changed meaning. My how and why are shifted out of position too. And now I'm asking myself, who even am I? This is existential wondering, which we each have experienced before, prior to the advent of COVID-19. The question comes after major health diagnosis or serious medical treatment. It comes when there is a significant death, especially the loss of your parent, spouse, child, close friend. In any loss that feels jarring to your understanding of the nature of things, such as a heartbreaking divorce which disrupts the future you believed was secure, or that job loss that set you adrift into wrestling with work and economic security. Perhaps a struggle with the mental health of a child, throwing daily life into a tailspin. And the pandemic, of course, holds all of this in a kind of amplified way. All the life events continuing in the middle of the pandemic song still sounding. And as the grief continues, we have been so dislodged that adjustment is constant and arrhythmia pronounced. Who even am I? Who are you now after this year? And what Lefebvre names as disruptions and the meaning of time, and the fragmentation of people who are out of phase. There is also amazing new life. Unmoored from the usual markers, many people just decide to do life differently. They may have shocked you. You might have surprised yourself. And while this can certainly involve resources and privilege, change can also be the exact opposite. Taking huge financial risk, losing everything, risking much more. There was a recent article by Amanda Long in the March 7th issue of the Washington Post magazine that described this beautifully. She began, "In our year of waiting, here are stories of people who didn't wait." Each interview title summed up someone's bold change right in the midst of year one. "I quit the restaurant business and started my own art studio. I fell in love. I don't want to wait anymore. I got divorced after 33 years of marriage. We built a house ourselves on our own in the woods. I got gender affirming top surgery as part of my gender transition. We started IVF, in vitro fertilization. I ran for school board and won. I moved across the country to live closer to my family." These were the stories listed. What actions in your own life involved a leap for change out of this painful new reality? During the last year, or way before, at other times in your life? In the 12 months of disruption, most of us were doing some kind of evaluation. Am I where I want to be? Who am I when the rhythms of my habits so sharply shift? And what is the meaning of this life? Here's my biggest rehabituation. More and more, I am identifying and anchoring in earth first, in the natural rhythms that continue despite the unraveling of human systems. There is great beauty and seasonal reassurance, along with massive species loss and climate disruption. There has been a pronounced deepening of my connection to particular places, animals, trees, waters, mountains, deserts, stones, very local sites in most cases, and also in imagining all those distant geographies I once visited when travel was more possible. Gaia, named as the being of our planetary home and multiple natural systems, is evolving even as we devolve. This hard truth invites us to develop a different human consciousness. Albert Einstein, decades ago, said it this way: "A human being is part of the whole, called by us universe. a part of limited time and space. He, she, they experience self, thoughts, and feelings as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of consciousness, Einstein said. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desire and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Einstein felt, our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Within nature's endless revelation, there is a way of being rooted as humans, which we can choose to develop. Remembering the indigenous ways that weave underneath all human life and action. Many peoples never stopped living in sacred place and elements with a commitment to all beings. They make a collective promise that transcends particularities of individual tribe, culture, family lineage, personal identities. This does not involve discounting important individual markers. Rather, it suggests we might embrace them more deeply while simultaneously experiencing and designing a wider wholeness. As a path to individual transformation, this natural rooting process moves us towards human cooperation, collective identity. If the pandemic has shown us anything, it is that our lives depend on the relationships around us. And as been widely noted, our arrhythmia may actually be our salvation, our unplanned shift, the needed disruption of human being. Nature's revelation is that we belong to Earth. We are a species long in arrhythmia with the planetary rhythms, unaware of or disregarding our arrogant and destructive ways. When human systems fall apart, everything is at risk and anything is possible. Robert Frost writes of spring green approaching equinox in this northern hemisphere. Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf, so Eden sank to grief. So dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay. Grief and loss and disruption and change invite pondering why you remain. Who are you now? 1 year into the pandemic, we never imagined. What is your big change going to be? This is the time to leap into new design, as if your life depended on it, for your best and higher self, for family and friends, for the sake of many interconnected communities, and for the survival and the thriving of the next generations. This anniversary is your threshold into everything. Imagine an emergence which brings wholeness, honoring the highest values and inclusion for all. Nature reveals an intricate web in which we each briefly shine and shimmer. And yet, nothing gold can stay. Seize this day. Amen.
For the earth forever turning, for the skies, for every sea, for our lives, for all we cherish, sing me a joyful song of peace. For the mountains, hills, and pastures, in their silent majesty, for the stars, for all the heavens, sing me a joyful song of peace. For the sun, for rain and thunder, for the seasons harmony, for our lives, for all creation, sing me a joyful praise to me. For the world we raise our voices, for the home that gives us birth. In our joy we sing, returning home to our moving hills of earth.
Our benediction is an excerpt from a poem by UU minister Lynn Unger entitled Pandemic. It was written on March 11th, 2020, and the poem went viral. It was the reading used for the first All Souls Sunday service recorded for after the shutdown 1 year ago. Sing, pray, touch only those to whom you commit your life. Center down. And when your body has become still, reach out with your heart. Know that we are connected in ways that are terrifying and beautiful. You could hardly deny it now. Know that our lives are in one another's hands. Surely that has come clear. Do not reach out your hands. Reach out your heart. Reach out your words. Reach out all the tendrils of compassion that move invisibly where we cannot touch. Promise this world your love, for better or for worse, in sickness and in health, so long as we all shall live. Go in peace, return in love, and blessed be.
Pau, uma pedra, é o fim do caminho, é resto de toco e pouco sozinho.
A stick, a stone, it's the end of the road. It's the feeling alone, it's the weight of your load. It's a sliver of glass, it is light, it's the sun, it is night, it is death, it's a knife, it's a gun.
A flower that blows, a fox in the brush, a knot in the wood, the song of the thrush.
The mystery of life, the steps in the hall, the sound of the wind and the waterfall.
reason for hope, and the riverbank sings of the waters of life. It's the promise of life, it's the joy in your heart. The ground, the flesh and the bone, the beat of the road, a slingshot stone, a fish to flash, a silvery glow, a fight, a bat, the reach of the bow.
The bed of the well, the end of the line, the dismay in the face. It's a loss, it's a find.
A spear, a spike, a stick, a nail, it's a drip, it's a drop.
It's the end of the tale.
The dew on the leaf in the morning light.
The shot of the gun in the dead of the night.
A mile, a must, a thrust, a bump.
It's the will to survive. It's a jolt, it's a jump.
The blueprint of a house.
A body in bed, the car stuck in the mud.
It's the mud, it's the mud. A fish, a flash.
A fish, a wing.
It's a hawk, it's a dove.
It's the promise of spring.
And the riverbank sings of the waters of mud. It's the end of despair. It's the joy in your heart. Uma pedra é o fim do caminho, é o resto de toco, é pouco sozinho. Stick, a stick,
It is job.
it is a jolt,
It's a thorn in your hand.
it's a cut on your toe. In the distance, the shells, broken shadows of blue, and the riverbank sings of the promise of life.
A stick, a stone, the end of the road, the stump of a tree, it's a frog, it's a toad.
A sigh of breath, a walk, a run, a life, a death, the rain, the sun, and the riverbank sings of the waters of March. It's the promise of life, it's the joy in your heart.
This concludes our service today. I invite you to join us for coffee hour in the same Zoom.